Welcome to episode 24 of Sullivan Street, where we have a very special guest, Dan Eisenberg, who I will introduce in just a bit. But first, let's say hi to my co-host, Chris Miggs. Chris, we're recording on July 4th, so happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day and happy summer tour season. It's summer tour and you get to listen to new Crow shows like every day if you want to. So that's always nice. Always a
Yes,
great time of the year.
and by the time we record the next episode, you will have seen them, and they will have played some of their shows that they are headlining or leading, as opposed to the Santana show. So we'll be talking about that. But talking about them playing on tour in the 2024 season, this is a great time or a good segue to introduce our guest. Our guest, Dan Eisenberg. Probably not known to a lot of Crows fans, but should be, because ties into the Crows history and also current news as well. So Chris will give more introduction, but he played with Model Society, one of Adam's first bands, which most of the listeners of this podcast know. He's a Bay Area musician, played with so many. I was just looking at the discography of albums he's played on. I think I saw more than 30, and I'm probably missing some there. He's played with Ryan Adams. And very interesting, the Crows fans has substituted for Charlie on a number of tours, in particular the 2014 tour. There was more we'll talk about, and also 2008, and also this year, I think, for just one show. But let's say hi to Dan Eisenberg. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, please, Chris, you can start.
Yeah, so I want to start out. I mean, if we start at the beginning, because Adam kind of tells the story. The way he tells the story is that he showed up to band practice one day when he was the keyboard player in Model Society, and there was another keyboard player, and that was you. And he was told that he was still the singer, but no longer the keyboard player in Model Society. And I've always been kind of curious, like, what was your what was your experience on that? What's your side of that story? What does that look like for you?
That was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I remember. First of all, I'm a big fan of Adam's piano playing. I really am. He's a great, he's a great piano player, and in the pop piano style. Like his piano playing on Long December. Well, it's got great feel. Like if you heard that, if you heard him and he didn't sing a note of that, you go, I want that guy on my session playing piano. I mean, but I remember being at a little garage where I rented, it was turned into like a little studio in Berkeley. And he showed up with his drummer, Rob, and I think he was showing me some songs, and he played piano, and I was like, oh, he plays piano. What do you guys need me? And then maybe Rob said, okay, no, he's going to play piano now, but I don't think I was so much better than him, but different, but he said, Adam's a great piano player. So then we started that band. I do remember thinking, because he just threw out some songs and singing, and this is long before he was, really well known or famous or anything. And I just go, this guy's really good. He's not very talented. This guy's a very talented young man right here,
But that was your first time meeting him. Your first band practice together was your first time meeting each other.
Yeah, I think that was. He came over to this, as that's what I recall. He came over, I think it was where I lived, I think, with my piano, and with Rob, the drummer, and he showed me some of his songs. And I go, these songs are really good.
So you were friends with Rob, the drummer, and that's what kind of pulled you into the band.
Yeah, I knew the drummer. I think I just knew the drummer from being around Berkeley. I think I was going to UC Berkeley at the time, like just getting a liberal arts degree, and I think we all were going to school there.
Did you want to talk a little bit about your time during that band? I forget how long that band lasted for.
But, that band lasted, I think a solid 2 years. I think basically maybe started in latter part of 86, I think, but definitely like 87. Then I think it broke up around the summer of like 89 or something like that, or late, early summer of 89, somewhere in that ballpark. And it was a really fun band for a long time. We didn't really get too popular. We finally started selling out this probably about a 200 capacity bar in Berkeley called the Starry Plow, and I just remember it was so exciting to walk up to the marquee, and first time in my life it said sold out. It was awesome. But we never really broke into the city. We recorded a 45,
Hmm.
and yeah, and then
Which is that was 45 is really kind of interesting because it's kind of all that exists of the band, I think, online. I mean, there's no tapes other than really that 45, which if anyone hasn't listened, it's on YouTube. There's two songs called Janie and Back to Baltimore.
it was just Janie and
Uh,
Back to Baltimore, right? Yeah.
yeah. What do you and I'm curious, so but did you guys tour very much, or was it really
No,
just sort of a local thing?
it was just a local thing. We rehearsed, and and those guys, the band carried my Hammond B3 and Yamaha CP70 piano, and
Mhm.
you know, make friends and enemies really fast when you have keyboards like that. You know, they're
That-
really heavy. They're really heavy.
And just out of curiosity, because I used to say that I could be wrong. I didn't have any particular musical talent. A little bit. I played some instruments growing up, but I used to say that if I was going to play in a band, I would have wanted to play keyboard, or I don't know about all the other instruments you play. But how did you get into? I'm curious. How did you get into keyboarding, and then or piano or whatever your start was, and then how did you then transition? I don't know if you're interested in other instruments, and then how did you transition to be like, I don't just want to play keyboard at home. I want to do it in a band. And was there a particular type of music you wanted to play with?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
those are great questions. Well, there was a baby grand around my house, not a very good one, but my mom used to play Beatles records and Donovan records and the musical Hair. And when I was pretty young, like 7, 8, I would just go try to figure out those songs on the piano. I was definitely not a prodigy or anything like that, but I really liked. I really felt moved by that music, and felt pulled to the piano to try to figure it out. So I credit my mom with really exposing me. My dad played viola, but I didn't really hear him play too much. But it was those records that I used to get pots and pans and go down, get my brother. I have a brother and sister. I'd get them to we'd with pots and pans and spoons and play along to Mellow Yellow by Donovan. You know,
Mhm.
and then later on, like probably junior high, around junior high ish, I started. The funny thing is, I heard those early Santana records,
Oh,
like
there you
the
go.
Santana One and Abraxas.
Mhm.
And when I heard Greg Raleigh's, the way that dude was playing Hammond organ with that soul, and that dude is so soulful, soul and fire. That guy's soul and fire. That's Greg Raleigh, and taste.
Mhm.
And he was like 18 or 9, but he was young, man, coming up with these iconic solos that Dave Matthews, the keyboard player in Santana, who's just a serious badass, he still plays some of those solos verbatim because they're so great. The
Mhm.
Greg Raleigh play, but those solos and the tone of that organ, just something went off and said, "That's I want to do that."
Mhm.
And I love Nicky Hopkins from the Rolling Stones kind of did the same thing, and a big huge influence, of course, for me was who I just go that guy is Billy Preston with the Beatles, and the
Yeah.
Stones, and all the stuff Billy Preston did, his solo stuff. He's you know Billy, I'd say Billy Preston. Billy Preston's the man. And
He is. Yeah.
it was the man. Maybe he's the man somewhere else. But
Somewhere in some well, and he's given his songs, I would if there is something else,
yeah,
probably.
I think that yeah, and if there is something else, and I think it's a reasonable possibility. There's something else. I don't know, but I think it's why not. You know,
Did did you said you went to you said you were attending Berkeley?
I went to Berkeley High, and then I went to UC Berkeley for. Well, I started going. I went to Berkeley High, and then I went to UC Santa Cruz for a couple years. Dropped out of UC Santa Cruz. Was in a band with David Immergluck down there, and in Berkeley High. I went to Berkeley High with David Immergluck, the guitar player, Counting Crows,
Yeah.
and and we played we played together probably for a few years in that band, and then that band was called Strange Creek, and then it was called then we we just scaled down to we we let one guitar player go, the other guitar player, and it was then just Dave. It was quartet, and that was called Laughing Dice. And then I transferred up, went to UC Berkeley, and that's where I met Adam. And then Adam's guitar player, Vincent Spalding, who's a really good guitar player, played with Rodney Franklin on some of his records, and he joined the Army band, so we needed another guitar player for Model Society. And so I go, I think I got the guy for you. You can check this buddy of mine, David Immergluck. He's really good, and then introduce them.
Well, so that I was going to ask that. So you're the one that introduced Immergluck into Model Society, but then introduced him and Adam, which I mean, obviously it sounds like they've been best friends for 40 years now,
I
right?
take full responsibility. The fault is mine. I take full responsibility.
Yeah. It's funny how that works out. I've never, sometimes, like almost by accident, I've introduced people and then they're married 30 years later, right, or something. It's weird how one introduction can really change people's lives for decades.
It's awesome,
Dude, this is total trivia, but what did you major in school?
Yeah. I was just I started in music, and then I felt like the good professor. All my heroes always said, man, the way to learn is just learn by ear off records, and that's mainly how I learned, because all my heroes, like, it was way before you had the YouTube lessons and all that stuff, and you had to,
right.
And all your heroes that you read every single interview, every single one, from Miles Davis, Wynton Kelly, all these jazz players, Billy Preston, they all said the same thing. I mean, I just learned by ear off the records, you don't. And so that's what I started doing, just putting on the records. And we had one of those half-speed Super Scope tape recorders, slowed it down, but it dropped it at an octave when you did it back then, because it didn't have the technology they do now. And yeah,
okay, great.
I remember playing I don't know how much time we have. Tell me if I'm going on too long. But I remember. Okay, so Model Society, we were playing a house party near where I lived, and I had this neighbor that lived next to me, this interesting gentleman, and slightly older guy, and I'd been practicing with my Super Scope tape recorder earlier that day, figuring out some like jazz lick or something, and to get that jazz lick, you have to keep rewinding that thing backward. I'd hear like two notes, and I you keep doing it like hours. Like, you get this one lick. That was earlier in the day before the party. That night of the party, playing with Model Society, Adam, the bass player, Marty was a bass player, and Marty Jones, who Mr. Jones is written about, and we were playing. We were playing, and it's like 2 a.m. We're still playing this house party. Got it cleared by all the neighbors except this gentleman. And all of a sudden he comes, it bounces into the house, kind of jumping up and down, clapping his hands. and I, I'm not going to name this guy. God bless him. It all ended well, but he bounces over first to our bass player Marty, who's kind of a tough guy. Like, Marty did construction, like you wouldn't mess with Marty, and he bounces over to Marty, and he's jumping, and I'm just like, what is going on here? And he claps Marty's face, like slaps him, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And Marty stops playing, and Adam, I don't think he clapped Adam, but there was this one woman who was a girlfriend of one of the guys who lived in the house, wanted us to stop playing like 2 hours ago, because she didn't even live there, but she wanted to sleep. And she came down 2 hours before and asked us to please stop. And we said one more song. Of course, we went into some Grateful Dead jam, lasted like 45 minutes on purpose, but she'd already left. We call him the clapper, bounced in, slapped Marty, comes over, and I was just fascinated by this whole situation, like fascinated in the human condition. He comes over to me, bouncing, and he's with his son, college age son, who's coming in behind him, and he comes over to me and he goes, "It's 2:30 in the morning," and he just claps my face. It kind of hurt. It did sort of hurt, but I was just fascinated. Then he bounced out of the house, and the story's almost over. So thanks for listening. Anyway, that it is. I think it's a word. It's funny, and then Adam was there, so so he bounces out of the house, and we're like, well, that was a trip. We're all going, that was a trip. And then later, I'm going to sleep that night, and he's talking to his son, and he said, "Son, I went temporarily insane tonight." And his son said, "Dad, I hope you get over it." And then I felt bad for the guy, because we were kind of in his environment,
Mhm.
Next day, I wrote him a nice note saying, "I'm very sorry for if our music disturbed you, but I think the way that you handled it was not maybe the best way." You know, he came over that afternoon and knocks on my door, and I it was a peace offering. He said that's one of the times I get called Daniel. He goes, "Daniel, I just want to say you're a very nice young man. Thank you so much for that very nice note. But see what happened earlier in that day, you were practicing that same figure over
Mhm.
and over and over again. And then that night, you guys, Model Society was playing that party, and I wasn't in control of my environment, and I went temporarily insane." And,
The
and
power of music.
the power of music. Anyway, I don't know if you want to keep that on the podcast. But
No,
I always wonder, like the son,
you
for
might want to
example,
edit that down. Sorry about that.
that that
no,
that
no, no.
that for example, the son that showed up, who was about your age, I'm guessing. Like,
Yeah.
do people like that remember or even know that, for example, Adam Duritz was one of the
I
band
don't think
members?
they probably didn't. They probably will never put that together because they didn't.
Yeah.
They'll probably never. Yeah, they probably. That's a great. Yeah, no, they probably know. But
It,
we were all entertained by it. Not we didn't put the guy down. It was just we were fascinated, and we were all just in stitches the next day laughing about it. Even though we did get clapped, we
Did you
still
get
thought it was just a funny, odd thing to have happened, and we nicknamed that guy the Clapper.
when you were talking about
And I
Model
hope he's
Society,
doing great wherever he is. I hope he's doing great. God bless him.
Chris, you were when you were even saying like only two of the songs were officially released, the
Mhm.
45. I always wonder if like the tapes exist somewhere. Like, Dan, do you know if anybody has like
Oh,
Adam, for example, 20 years ago re-released all the Himalayan stuff. Yeah, just kind of curious if any of the recordings are ever there or if any of the songs. Even part of me says that I bet you some of those Model Society songs have like things that it would be fun to re-record them and probably have some good. There's probably some good songs in
there were some. I thought there were some good songs. It's been a long time, man. Maybe the guitar player, one of the other guitar players, Mike Robinson, who's a really good friend of all of ours, might still have some cassettes. Michael Robinson.
there. Okay,
Marty
just curious.
Jones. Marty Jones might have some.
Yeah,
The
Have to
bass
reach
player.
out.
it'd be cool to
Yeah,
re-record one of those and for
yeah.
2024.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
I
very
don't
curious. Like,
know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that guys. I don't know if they want to.
well, I'm
I
very
like.
curious.
I like
All
the. I
we've got
like
is the
that Back to Baltimore song. I like Janie. I thought those were some good songs.
yeah. Well, what did the rest of it sound? I mean, presumably, if you guys had a bunch of songs, because all we know are those two songs, right? In terms of like what you guys played, like, are those songs like representative of what the rest of the band sounded like, or is not really? Or
Um, that was like part of it. There were other songs, and we also started opening up for ourselves under a different name, doing all covers that we love to do. So this exact same band members, Adam was, and we called that band Your Mom, and like your mama, but we called it Your Mom. And so we get all the money because we were the opening band and the headliner, and we get to play longer. And we do stuff. We do Van Morrison covers. Adam really loved Van Morrison. We did some Les McCann covers. We did, yeah, we did Compared to What by Les McCann. You know, uh,
oh,
we did. Yeah, and
it sounds like a little Grateful Dead, maybe based on the.
we. I mean, I was definitely into the Grateful Dead. I think Adam was into the Grateful Dead too. Um, Gluck was definitely into the Grateful Dead, but Gluck played with Model Society, but he was doing it. He got in there a little bit later and not as much. Um, but yeah, there was there were different kinds of songs. The original songs. Adam wrote some great songs.
Were you
Chris, one
guys
of
like
these. Yeah,
kind of
sorry.
opening up and doing kind of improv a little bit and on some of those? It sounds like maybe or not yet or.
Yeah, we were. You know, I don't know how much jamming Model Society did. I can't remember, but Your Mom, we would definitely open up some
Mhm.
more improv. Probably definitely a lot of solos and that kind of thing.
One of these days, Chris will have to get a list of all bands Emmy has been in, and I bet you the list
Oh
is
boy,
very extensive. he might
that
he
guy,
might
that
even be
guy.
one of the highest in the country.
Yeah, he was just. I just
So,
went. I played with Mother Hips a few days ago in Nevada, and Jay Blakesberg, the photographer, was there,
Mhm.
and he said that he shot Immergluck, like the Emmy thing, like I call him Immergluck. I call him Emmy sometimes, but I didn't grow up calling him Emmy. I just Immergluck or Dave. But
Mhm.
but he said he shot Dave when Dave was with the Ophelias. That band, like a long time ago, had the Ophelias, the Monks of Doom,
mm.
and then of course
Well,
you got
let's
whole history. Then Camper Van
no,
When
Beethoven, yeah,
right.
Camper, we interviewed Dave Lowry about some of that period, and
yeah.
things like any. I will just say any early Emmy stories before we talk about like later stuff. Just like
Well, Dave's one of my absolute best friends in the whole universe. I love that guy. And we had a great time just me sitting in on that one show recently. We all it was just love my brothers out there. But funny. I mean, there's a lot of funny Emmy stories. I have to think like which ones I have to like. I have to get them cleared probably.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't right. We don't want anything that would
yeah, no,
yeah make
yeah.
them.
One kind of thing that was we had this one thing that was cool. Like it was probably in the early 2000s, or like I think I was touring with Tiff Merritt. I toured with her for almost 5 years. Tiff Merritt, singer
Mhm,
songwriter from Chapel Hill, North Carolina,
mhm.
really good. And I think I was maybe in North Carolina. I can't remember. We were out east somewhere, and Dave was out. Emmy. Dave was out east touring with, I guess maybe I don't know if it was Counting Crows or somebody, and we both met. We were meeting for dinner, just random. We hadn't talked about this, and neither one of us had ever had any, you know, crazy color ever in our hair ever, and we hadn't talked about this. And we meet at this restaurant. We both walk in, and we both had the exact same shade of red, and like bright red, like bright red color, hair color red, like not like red hair red, but red, like kind of pink red in our hair, and it was funny how that just happened at the same time. We both never had done that. Um, you know,
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's nice, and it kind of ties into what at least we only know these people from a distance or what we read or interviews. But
yeah,
I love that you've kept in touch with a lot of these people all these years that the story continues. I mean, Adam to me seems like I think one unheralded thing about him, such a loyal guy that doesn't get changed by fame in that way. And of
yeah.
course it's not, he's also talked about, by the way, if somebody burns him he remembers it forever as well and
Okay,
probably holds it against him, but when he likes somebody he's there for the long haul, and I just think that's a great quality. So
yeah. Dude's got a big heart. He,
Uh, so we are gonna. So we'll move into your playing time at the Counting Crows, and I know Chris wants to ask you about some particular shows and substituting for Charlie. And I guess I just want you to maybe first talk about that because, as I've said so much on the podcast, I think Charlie is so talented. I think he's one of the best in the United States, and I think he'd be
agreed. I think he's awesome. Charlie's great.
and
Yeah.
I think he'd be tough to substitute for because I think sometimes when he plays things, and this is just me projecting, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I think he sometimes adds things to songs or does things in a way to challenge himself, right? And so it's pretty difficult to maybe do everything that he wanted to do or had in his mind. But you could talk about that.
Yeah, Charlie's awesome. I love Charlie's parts. It's like, I yeah, I mean I was nervous going out there every single time. I was nervous this last time. But I just my mantra for the music business, I guess you could use it for life, is do my best and leave the rest. you know. But yeah, but Charlie, I love Charlie's playing, man. He plays great parts. He's soulful, he's tasteful, and just really serves the music and the song. Great. So I do my best to learn the parts that is best, that I can, and then just do my own thing. But I think Adam also, that in the counting, they want, the main parts of the songs, they want you to, you got to grab those, but then they also want you to put your heart into the music, you know
Yeah.
and it's just and I think they know. I think they know my strengths and weaknesses.
Hmm.
They just want me to put my strengths into the music is sort of the vibe I get. But
Great.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of Charlie Gillingham. Great person, great player,
How much prep
and
time
great
when?
fashion sense.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
How much? I mean, because I know people may not know. There's I think it's like about a 2 week period in 2008 where fully replaced Charlie because he was having a baby.
Right.
How much like prep time did you have for that sort of gig where you're
That
like coming
one,
in?
that was the second time I think I did it. That one I got a little more prep time than the first time. First time his dad passed away, so he had to bail.
When was
But
that?
like 2004, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was the John when they were on tour with John Mayer. I think is that John?
Oh, that
When
would
was
have been like
John
the
Mayer?
'03,
Oh,
The
three.
John Muir tour. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, it must have been right when I got off tour with Ryan Adams. Um, but yeah, so that's the so 2000, 2004, 2008. The prep time was probably about I don't know. They gave me I've had a few weeks probably. So that that's like this last time, just a couple weeks ago. I had like I had like I had one day.
Right.
I
Just
did
come.
I did like I charted out like 20 because it's been a long time since I played all those songs.
Mm.
So I charted out all those, and I didn't have the charts anymore, and I didn't have time to. Always prefer not to have to look at the paper, but 20 songs. You don't want to, So I charted out 20 songs and then flew out the next morning.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, what's up? I'm gonna say because you charted out 20 songs, but did you know that those were kind of the only 20 that could get played? Because
No,
I was actually.
so they called me on the Monday saying Charlie couldn't do the show. He's going to be out for a bit, and so he was under the weather. And they said here, focus on these, and they sent me those 20 songs to focus on.
Gotcha. Because I know I was looking back some of the 2008 songs, and some of those songs that were played during those shows were songs that had like never been played before. Like "Why Should You Come When I Call," right? So you guys were, I assume, were just maybe you would prep those, but a little bit, but you would maybe figuring those out together with the band, or
Uh, I recall for that tour, they knew they had already been playing all the songs, but there were some really cool songs and some challenging songs like Washington Square. Is that the name of
Mhm.
that song? Washington. All
Yeah.
those, a lot of that
Yes.
beautiful Charlie piano in there.
Yes, that's
I,
one of his
me-
best. Yeah.
I remember spending a lot of time on that, but then I'm thinking I mostly got it. Um,
Yeah. I
and
was listening to that yesterday. Yeah, I agree. That
oh
sounded
cool,
great.
oh cool.
But I guess that's a tough thing that people hopefully will recognize after this episode is that for someone like you playing with so many bands, right? There's a lot of learning in there, and sometimes might not even be a payoff. I'm not saying with the Crows, but you might have to learn something for one band you play. I don't know, a month or two with them, and then that's it, right? So
Yeah, I mean, but it's always valuable to like just as I was a kid, you just learn by ear off the records, and you get benefit just using your ear. So even if the gigs doesn't, if somebody calls me for a one off and I have to learn a bunch of material, then I have to get a different business arrangement with it, But it's like, but it's you always there's always benefit learning music by ear. So even if you don't get doesn't turn into like a long tour or something like that, you get the value of having figured it out by ear.
was there any you talked about Washington Square being a bit of a challenge because as you said Charlie's part is so good there and it's not a song that they play all the time. Is there any particular songs you just like playing with them either because you like your part or you like the way the band is or how the audience reacts?
Um, Man, I like all their songs. They're such great songs. It's like there is spontaneity those guys have on stage, which is awesome. So you just never know. Any song could turn into the one that was. You just don't know which one's going to be the most, fun up there,
Mm.
kind of a thing.
Well, that's actually part of what I was curious about too. Is you've played in a lot of bands where there's improv, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
you've
that's what
played
I
with
love.
Ryan Adams, you played with like Phil Lesh and in the Mother Hips, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious if you like the Crows version of improv always seems like sort of unique to me, right? The idea of particularly in something like Rain King, where you just kind of might be following a new song in the middle. I'm always kind of what was that like for you to kind of plug into and sort of drop in and figure out, how to was that a hard experience? Was that is that
You talking about
different than other
like
improv, or
the recent thing, the recent sit-in?
or just any of the times? I know in like Rain King's one where maybe in the middle I was the 2008 version. There's with a little help from my friends in the middle, for
Oh
example, or
yeah, you just well, 2008 we probably went over it at sound check or something like that. We
okay.
went over a few songs at sound check, um, and then yeah, and we just went over a few songs at sound check.
But is it different, like improving with the Crows versus? I mean, like example, you played "Friend of the Devil" just a couple weeks ago, right? You
Right.
played that ripping solo, but you've also played that song again, like with like Phil Lesh and band. Is that a different experience with the Crows in terms of that kind of improvising, or is it all kind of one to you?
Well, that's an excellent question. I would just say there's definitely a common denominator. Um, Somebody like I haven't played with Phil for a little while, but somebody like Phil or people in that scene. God bless Phil Lesh. That dude's killing it, man. He's killing
Mm-hmm.
it.
Still
Stingray in
sounds
particular.
great. It's like 85.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. He's such he's so awesome. But I'd say like in the Grateful Dead circuit of musicians and jazz musicians, they'll the focus, it's about the songs, but there's more, maybe a little more stretching than the Counting Crows. That being said, Counting Crows, I feel like what I love about that band is if there's definitely, you don't have to play it the same way every single time. Like certain riffs and lines that identify the song, you need to do, but at least that's my impression. Of course, I don't know. When I've gone in to do stuff with those guys, a lot of it I'm winging it. So I'm not going to play it the same way every time. But they seem to be cool with it. But Emmer Gluck grew up on the Grateful Dead, and Jim Dog is a great improviser. They're all really great improvisers. And Adam improvises a lot vocally, I feel, and even conducting the sections of songs. Like
Right.
that Rain King version we just did. They gave me, you know, Dan Vickery wasn't there. They gave me his solo on
Mhm.
Rain King. I played it on organ, and then I thought the solo was, and then they kept Adam kind of conducted to keep going after I thought it was over, and so we extended it, and it was like, okay, cool, and that was really fun. I just feel like you just never know. Counting Crows, I feel there is a lot of spontaneity and a lot of creativity, and just I guess it's like their improvisation might be a little bit not quite as obvious as somebody like Phil Lesh,
Mhm.
but they definitely improvise, and there's a lot of spontaneity in the Counting Crows.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So it really is kind of, and that's like I kind of figured, but you're on something like Rain King, right? You're just kind of watching Adam for cues. So it's like an improv, but with more of like a band leader format. Maybe is that maybe the way to describe it?
Yeah, or like I think of him as, yeah, he's definitely the band leader, but I would call him the conduct. I'm almost like a conductor,
Conduct.
which
Okay.
is great, which I'm stoked to have because like I'm like, where are we going with this? And he's like, he'll do this, like keep going, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you
I,
had any particular memories of any particular shows? I know that's kind of vague that you wanted to share or with fans. I don't know if there's a particular year or show that
with,
stands out for
with
you.
counting crows.
Yeah, with Counting Crows
I
when
remember
you were
this one
doing the
time
stuff.
you talked about like funny moments with Immergluck and those guys and me and Dave and Jim Dog Jim Bogus.
Mhm.
We used to have this band called Glider. Maybe one day we used to do like some really fun covers. Like Booker T and Meters and Fellini soundtrack stuff.
Mhm.
And so, but we have a history. Those guys, those guys are my brothers. And one of my first shows with County Crows, I can't remember if it was the 2004 2008. and Charlie and all those, almost everybody in Counting Crows, I think, except Immergluck, uses in-ear monitors
Mhm.
rather than having a speaker to hear everything of all the instruments and vocals right next to you. They have in-ear monitors, but Immergluck, old school, just uses monitors. I haven't really, I've used in-ears a little bit, but not a lot. So I'm mostly just rolling with monitors. And I get to this, I get driven right, probably charted out a bunch of songs. This is, a long time ago, 2004, 2008, charted out a bunch of all these songs, get dropped off at like a Shoreline Amphitheater venue for sound checks. And we're going over songs. Then playing the show that night, and they put up a monitor for me. They had the monitor for me wasn't really working right, and we started, so I could hear it, and then they got it right, and then we're hitting the show, and I think they opened with Round Here, and
Mhm.
it starts with Dave Bryson's little signature guitar riff. I
Mhm.
just want to say I think Bryson's a secret weapon in that band. The guy's awesome,
Yeah.
and starts playing that guitar riff, and the organ's supposed to do this drone thing and change chords underneath that guitar riff, but the monitor stopped working right. Everybody else is hearing it on in-ears except me, and I couldn't hear his guitar riff, and so I was like, I don't know when to change the chord because I couldn't hear the riff. I couldn't hear the rhythm of the riff. I couldn't hear there was no riff. And so I just kind of played chicken, and I held a note that would work through all the chords,
Mhm.
Maybe I found one note that might work through all the chords and kind of held that, but kind of rocked the volume pedal back a little bit so it's not too loud. It's kind of
Mhm.
a cowardly move, but I didn't know what else to do. And then and Immergluck, he's right in front right in front of the organ, and he looks back, and without any hesitation, he looks back, he looks up at Jim, and then he looks back at me, walks over, puts his foot on top of my foot, and steps down the volume pedal, and they go. Everybody had a good laugh at that. Then somehow they got my monitor working so I could hear the rhythm of it. But yeah, it's another terrifying moment in the rock and roll business.
I can imagine, right? Especially if it's your first show playing with them, and you're trying to open the show the right
Yeah,
way.
that was 20 years ago, and I'm still going to therapy about it. But it's not
Hey,
true.
just kind of a random question, but have you had any I mean, I guess obviously while you were playing with them, but have you had any interesting interactions with Crows fans that they knew that they knew you from playing with them or your history with the band, etc. Besides here today on Sullivan Street podcast.
Every once in a while, you get somebody that comes up to you. Hey, you play with Counting Crows? I saw you with Counting Crows. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That kind of.
Oh, that's cool. We looked ahead of time right before the show, and we noted that you also have played, um, I guess, on the Tender Mercies album. Is that
Yeah,
true? You
yeah.
want to
I'm on
talk about
that.
that a little bit?
Oh, I just recorded that. I love that. I love those songs. Dan Vickery's project, and Jim Bogus is on that. I think Charlie's on some of that too.
Mhm.
And yeah, we recorded at Dan Vickery's house in San Francisco. Great
Did you
songs. I love
did you
that
play
song,
with them in
Mercy.
the Did you play with them back in like the '90s too, or is that
I
just
did
was something
some.
you
I
kind
did
of
a few I did some live shows, but not a lot of live shows.
gotcha? Gotcha. Then of course again that would sort of sat unrecorded until I think it was like 2010, 11, 12, something like that, and
I guess. Yeah, something that sounds about right.
yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Oh
Um,
yeah, 2011. It looks like it was recorded. Yeah, Chris, did you also have other questions about
yeah,
particular shows? I think you did, or
well, and I'm
something.
curious. I mean, to like specifics, I mean, you, in terms of this is like an Adam Atticus and a Ryan Adams thing sort of at the same time, right? You guys played together on the Tonight Show, right? Doing Answering Bell. Um,
Right. I played with Ryan Adams for about 2 years, like the Gold Tour and
mhm,
2001, 2003, and Adam and Immergluck were Adam recorded was hanging out with Ryan Adams, like they were buddies, and I didn't even know who Ryan Adams was, and they were Adam did that on the record, sang Answering Bell on song Gold, right, and sang backgrounds on that, maybe took a verse or something,
mhm,
and then Immergluck called me and said, "Hey, Adam and I have been hanging out with this dude Ryan Adams. This guy's no joke." if he calls you to audition, say yes. So I okay, and then I got a call like a few days later. Hey, did Danny? This Danny Eisenberg? That's when I think I started being called Danny. Uh, uh, you want to come to Nashville and audition? I said sure, and then yeah, we got to do I think Adam joined us on the Tonight Show. We did Answering Bell, and then what was really cool, and Adam's, it's like my buddy Adam's a big star now, and I was super stoked for him, but I was like,
Mhm.
it's like, that's Adam. Hey, Adam's a big star, and I was, I'd be nervous around him sometimes because like just a little, and now it's like he's just my bro, but back, but it's like then it was more of a earlier on, and Elton John was a big fan of Ryan Adams, and he would pop up and he'd play with us sometimes. Like I would be playing organ and there'd be piano set up for Elton, and we'd be playing at the same time. We did that at the Irving Street Plaza, New York, I
Mhm.
guess how
Yeah.
you call it. And then we did it at a place club in Toronto, and then we did tape the Crossroads show with Elton. But we played his Grammy party one year. But and Elton was awesome. But but we also did a video for Answering Bell that Elton was in, and then because Adam sang on it, Adam came to shoot the video with us. And I remember being in a dressing room with Adam. Elton's on the other side of the sheetrock wall on the other side, and my big rock star buddy Adam just was just like became a fan. He looks at me. Do you know? Do you know who's right over there? Do you know who's across that wall? Like all of a sudden, it was really awesome seeing Adam, like it's like that's why we play music, because we love those guys, because their music moves us. And the same thing too with my buddy Dave Immergluck. Um, just recently, he sat in with Carlos Santana, and I was like the day after I flew back, he sat in with Carlos on a song, and we grew up, he and I, listening to Santana, and that's he saw Santana when he was 11 at the Berkeley
Mhm.
Community Theater, and he credits that with why he started playing guitar. I'm pretty sure.
No, you're
Hope
absolutely.
I hope I got that right, Dave. But anyway, I was just so stoked seeing him sitting with Santana.
No, particularly with musicians. I think comedians also a little bit, but particularly with musicians, yes, you're right. No matter how much of a star you are, there is someone that you looked up to who's older than you, right? That you listened to when you were a kid, that kind of motivated you to get into music. And then when you hear that they met those people, they're still star shocked,
Yeah,
still shocked no matter how much of a star that person became themselves,
yeah,
because they were your idol growing up or whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah. And Elton was awesome. And Adam introduces himself to Elton John in the dressing room and says, "Hi, I'm Adam." And Elton goes, "I know who you are."
oh, I love stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Well, because that's the era. I feel like, and I guess it's still true, but like it seemed like Elton John, like everyone had a story about, like, well, Elton John told me he really liked my record. Apparently, Elton John listened to everything. It seemed like at that time, you know.
Elton's man, my experience, I got to do probably, it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. The last time was probably sometime in 2003 or something. But um, Elton was the nicest person in the world. Like Ryan Adams' manager, who's now passed away, but manager back then, Frank Collari,
Mm-hmm.
uh, had this great word for Elton John because it just summed him up. He was gracious, like super professional
Hmm.
and great, very gracious to all of us, Um, and like he would show up at these gigs, and the piano they had for him was, I was like, they said, can you test it out before he gets here and make sure that it's, and so I played the piano, boy, and I'm thinking this piano just does not sound right.
Hmm.
And, and I'd probably be like up there, like trying to get, getting a little prima donna on it. Go, man, you need to put some highs in here, but take out the lows. And, this is, and then Elton gets there, walks up to the piano and goes, okay, this is cool. And I was like, okay, that's professional right there. I got to get some of that.
Yeah, he's just chill with whatever piano just happens to be in
So
a
that was
a
my
New York club,
experience. I
right?
mean,
Yeah.
that was my experience. Like he was chill. He didn't complain. He was super positive. He was funny as hell. Like he would, I mean, I don't know if I can I say something that might not be politically correct totally on here.
Sure.
Go ahead.
We are nervous. We're taping the Crossroads show with Elton, and he sat in with us a couple live shows, but we're going to tape that VH1 Crossroads show, and we're at I think we're at we did it twice. One time we had to tape it again for technical reasons, and
Yeah.
they and I think we're at second
So
time
Ryman?
we did it at the Ryman. Yeah, that's the one they used. The first one we did it at the Hammerstein Ballroom,
Okay.
and that one got scrapped, and we did it at the Ryman, and we're all nervous as hell at sound check. I mean, Elton John, and I mean, no, he sat in with us, but it's still just doing this television show and this recording, and we'd all worked on the songs. We're feeling pretty solid on them, but we're still nervous, and he could tell we're nervous. And Ryan Adams has that song Firecracker.
Mm-hmm.
And Elton's on the piano at soundcheck, and he's going, and it's the lyric of the song is "I want to be your firecracker,"
Mm-hmm.
and Elton just goes, "I want to be your fudge packer," and it just made us all just laugh so much. It just put us all at ease. It was a total producer move of Elton to make us all laugh and be comfortable. It was just once we laughed, it took away all the nervousness.
Yeah, kind of some. Yeah, some.
You might need to edit that out. I don't know.
No, well, but as you said, yeah, people do realize. Yeah, no, you called it right. Put people at ease. He knows people are nervous around him to show that he has kind of a sense of humor about himself or the world or whatever.
Laughing at himself, laughing,
That society. Yeah, no, I get it. Chris? Was there any other particular performances that you wanted to ask about?
The only thing I'll ask, we've talked about just the different periods. The 2008 era. There's the band Augustana was doing a lot of the shows with the Crows. Any memories of that, where it was kind of like a larger band with all those guys sitting in?
Augustana. Sorry. What are you?
Oh, no worries.
That's all right. Well,
no problem.
Sorry,
Augustana. That name sounds familiar, but I don't really remember the music so much.
Okay. Well, they were just sort of on stage with you guys a lot in those 2008 shows. There was
I think they were probably the opening band, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious if that
Maroon 5 was headlining, right? I think. I mean, or we were co-headlining.
Co-headlining, yeah, they were going back and forth.
I know you played with so many bands, both with the Crows and with everybody else, and I welcome people. We said this before the show or whatever, but I welcome listeners to the podcast to check out your discography. Because I said I've counted more than 30 and so many different types of music as well. Of course, you probably you have a certain type, but I guess that's what happens, right? People just they know your reputation or your skill, and then you just get asked to certain. I mean, the one that stood out to me, which I actually owned this album, but didn't listen to it much because I had a friend who was obsessed with it, and I think I listened to it once. What was it? How do you pronounce it? Is it Modest Yahoo? I always forget.
What's it? By who? Who's
it? I'll put the album Youth by
Modest Yahoo.
Yeah, Modest Yahoo. Were you on that one?
I don't know.
Or did they list you as okay?
The internet says it, so
the internet says it, so it must be true. Okay.
What kind of music was it?
Oh, isn't it like
Jewish rap?
Yeah, it's like Jewish hip hop, I think. Or maybe so.
It kind of sounds vaguely familiar. I don't.
Is there any particular albums that you love playing on that people don't know you played on that you're particularly proud of or whatever?
Particularly proud of, I recorded a record with Jonathan Richman in 1996. Recorded, probably half a dozen records with the Mother Hips, the Tender Mercies record. I have a track of mine called "Remember" that I put out. I'm not a great singer, but I put it out on Spotify, and it's under Danny Eisenberg on Spotify and Apple Music, called "Remember," and Jesus, just different. Some I think some funk jazz records.
Yeah, definitely a career that didn't just how you say you didn't just do one particular thing. You definitely had the richness of traveling around the world and traveling with different bands and recording with different with bands. So yeah, I mean, how do you feel about that career overall? The type of career that you had?
I mean, I love playing music. I still love playing music. I feel like I'm enjoying it more than ever. Yeah, and Tiff Merritt, I did a couple records with her. Another Country, I think is the name of the record. I think that's a pretty good record. Um, I mean, I just, it's never. I'm never. I'm never going to be as good as I want to get. It's a onward, on. Which is the fun part. You can always just keep working on it.
Yeah, I guess I'll use this time to plug some of your social media, which is Danny Eisenberg on Facebook. It's easy to find. It says works at musician, uses the Hammond B3 piano and keyboards, and also on Instagram, Danny Eisenberg 7.
Right.
And you said you're recording something right now or projects, so talk about that a little bit.
Yes, this band, it's Greg Lloyd Cano's solo project. Greg Lloyd Cano is a guitar player, one of the guitar players and singers of the Mother Hips. Basically, the main lead guitar player in the Mother Hips. And his solo project is called Stingray. And that's got Vicky Randall in it on percussion and vocals, background vocals, and some lead vocals, and Michael Urbano on drums, and Coffee Brown on bass, and Scott Ayers on guitar. And those are all super badass heavy hitters, And it's kind of a soul almost funk soul vibe, and some rock for sure. But so we've been recording at the record plant in Sausalito this last week, and I'm not sure if they're going to put out an EP or an LP or what's going on with that, but I think we did 5 or 6 songs this week.
All right.
And I think the music's great. It's coming out really, really great. Did a cover of a Sade song, but the rest are originals. And it's kind of, I call it sort of like funk rock or, soul rock. There's some soul vibe. Greg sings a lot of falsetto on this record.
I'm guessing, yeah. I was also thinking about just going back to when you're on the Tonight Show. I mean, that had to be a pretty cool experience, right? Just being on there. I don't know if your family members were watching.
Oh yeah,
I saw you because you were featured quite a bit. The camera did not ignore you. So
yeah, I with different bands. I've been on those national TV shows. It's been a while, but I did. I think the first time. Oh, one other band I wanted to plug too that is a great band called Go By Ocean. Lead singer Ryan McCaffrey, and I've been on I think every single one of their records, and he's just got some great songs. So I recommend Go By Ocean. Record called Sun Machine. Record called Paper Thin Hotel. Yeah. But I've probably done Tonight Show and David Letterman probably about half a dozen times each. Did Saturday Night Live one time with Ryan Adams, and then I did Conan a couple times. Once I toured with Shelby Lynn for a year, and when I Am Shelby Lynn record I wasn't on that record, but that's the tour we did in 2000, and did Conan with her. And yeah, it's always a fun ride to do those shows. Like I said, it's been a little while. I haven't done one for a bit,
Cool.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend if anyone listening is a Ryan Adams fan, those like 2001, 2002 Gold Era shows. That is a shit hot band. That is a
that was a really fun band, man. Yeah, that was. I think at the early part of that run, like I played with them 2001, 2003, I think, and that first rendition of that band, I think he called it the Sweetheart Revolution. Ryan Adams and the Sweetheart Revolution, and call it something. Forget what he called it afterward.
Pink Hearts and LAX, and I don't.
The Pink Hearts.
Seems like it was okay. It was Pink Heart.
Yeah, and he might have called it LAX too. Man, you guys are good. You guys got all the facts together. And then in the last tour I did with him, we got to open 9 shows for the Rolling Stones, so that was pretty fun.
Well, so cool. Well, thank you, Chris. Any other last questions or?
Oh no, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about the experience, and it's been an honor.
Yeah,
Well,
and so cool. And you really shed light on something too, which is that I know you talked about Bryson being the MVP of the band, and people have said that. But because the Crows have three guitars, on occasion they do play without one of them. Sometime, right? Dan, for example, on the 2023 was sick a few times, so they just played with two, and then Emmy and Dave took some of their parts. But it's tough to play without Charlie. Is one of the
yeah,
things we're learning here. They didn't just say, "Ah, we'll just forget Charlie's parts." No,
yeah.
they brought you in, and that's really cool that you got to be with the tour and added to. As I said, Chris told me, I don't think he talked enough ahead of time, but during the show, but Chris had listened to the shows that you played a lot and was gushing about your performances as much as we love Charlie. He said, "Boy, Dan did a great job filling in, and it's not an easy thing to do."
Oh,
And
well,
so,
thank you very much. I appreciate it, and yeah, I love Charlie's playing. Love those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really play accordion, so I had to. I was gonna do like Omaha on the Hammond, which I did before. But
Mhm.
this time I didn't. He was there, so it was all good. It was like,
Oh,
oh
and you
my
had to do
god.
Long December. What do you? Well, that's a good question. When you played 2008, what did you do for Long December instead of the accordion?
Well, Charlie was there. Well, were you talking about when? Okay, well, Charlie was there. We both played at this last show, right?
Right,
And
right.
and then and so I played but I play organ on it. I play organ. I just do something on organ. Yeah. Try to make it sound good. You know.
well, it's funny. We had James Campion on last. We didn't. We'll be releasing that episode soon, and he was talking about this podcast being like a. It's not just a podcast, but kind of like a project in a way. That part of it was not just to talk about what's going on now, but is to maybe document some of these, the history of the band as well. And so that's one that thing that was really cool. Again, thank you for being on. Is that it's not just, oh, it's an interesting story because you substituted this year. You were part of the whole history, including Model Society, and you knew. Did you say you knew Emmy from high school? Is that what you said?
Junior high, pretty
Junior
much.
high.
He's-
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. This goes back to all that, and
Oh
you've
yeah.
both been with somebody. By the way, yeah, I know you were joking about that. You call him, Emmy or Emma Gluck and Dave, but James Campion calls him Immer. So there's another one. So
I
there's
call him
another.
Immer.
Okay.
I mostly call him Immer. I mean,
Okay.
well, I call him Dave. My I guess I mostly call him Dave. You know. I actually might
So
be, yo, what's up, bro? But it's you know.
So I mean, yeah. So that's really neat. We have a history that goes back to junior high school to now. So
Yeah.
thank you so much
But
for
yeah,
joining us here on the podcast.
I just want to say those guys. I love those guys, and just the brotherly love I have for those guys means a lot. It's the best. Even
Great.
just as much as the music.
That's great. And congratulations on your decades of success and all your current and future projects too. So
Well, thanks a lot. All the best to you guys. Good to meet you, and it's been an honor to be asked to do this. So I really appreciate it.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time here on Sullivan Street.